Zwischen die gewinnt, das Lied gesungen mit Vergangenes in der Hand. Da sag mich keinmal, als du gehst den letzten Weg. Hat Himmel bleiene verstellen, blaue Tag. Komm, wird noch unser ausgewenkte Show. Es wird erfolgt an unser Tod, wir seinen da. Komm, wird noch unser ausgewenkte Show. Es wird erfolgt an unser Tod, wir seinen da.
On behalf of the Jewish Federation of Edmonton and as chair of the Holocaust Education Committee, it is my honor to welcome you to this year's virtual Yom HaShoah commemoration. This past year, the pandemic has brought many challenges. We are isolated, socially distant, and devoid of physical contact. We have been unable to come together as a community to celebrate or even to mourn. We have had to adapt the ways in which we connect. This year, we will experience Yom HaShoah with Holocaust survivors from our Edmonton Jewish community, their sons and daughters, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Every story of Holocaust survival is a miracle. Every descendant of a survivor is truly a gift. Today we honor the legacy of those who were there, of those who lived, and of those who died. Today we uphold our responsibility to keep their memories alive. I would like to welcome a message from Minister Lila Ahir, who will restate the proclamation of the Holocaust Memorial Day and Genocide Remembrance Act on behalf of the Government of Alberta.
Hello. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that Alberta is on Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territory. This land also holds deep importance for the Métis people of Alberta. I'm very, very honored to participate in the Jewish Federation of Edmonton's virtual recognition of Yom HaShoah. On behalf of the Government of Alberta, I would like to restate the proclamation of the Holocaust Memorial Day and Genocide Remembrance Act. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewish men, women, and by the Nazis and their collaborators between 1933 and 1945, and this horrific event is part of our common history as citizens on this earth, whereas the Nazis and their collaborators murdered 6 million Jewish people, including more than 1 million children during that time of persecution and death. Whereas the Nazis and their collaborators also persecuted and murdered millions of other people because of their race, religion, level of physical or mental ability, or sexual orientation. Whereas during World War II, Albertans bravely served as members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and many Albertans paid the ultimate price, their lives, to protect and preserve freedom and democracy. Whereas Shoah is the Hebrew term for Holocaust, where it is fitting and right to observe Yom HaShoah, the day of the Holocaust, as a day to remember the victims and survivors of the Holocaust, and to honor those who fought to defeat tyranny and genocide. Whereas this day provides Albertans with the opportunity to look within themselves, reflect on the enduring lessons of the Holocaust, and educate their children, their colleagues, and their fellow citizens on the perils of hatred. To consider other times and incidents of systematic violence, genocide, persecution, racism, and hatred that call out to us from the past and continue today, and to reaffirm their commitment to uphold the human rights of all and to value diversity and the multicultural richness of Alberta society. Whereas on Yom HaShoah, we will remember, for we must never forget. Therefore, Her Majesty, by and with the advice and the consent of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, enacts as follows. Yom HaShoah, the day of the Holocaust as determined in each year by the Jewish lunar calendar, is proclaimed as Holocaust Memorial Day, Yom HaShoah.
Prayers for the victims. God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, protector of widows and father for the fatherless. Please be not silent and show no restraint on behalf of the Jewish blood that has been spilt like water, but grant perfect rest on the wings of your divine presence in the lofty abode of the holy, pure, and valiant, who shine as the brightness of this heavens. To the souls of our brothers and sisters, 6 million Jewish men, women, and children who were put to death, slaughtered, burnt, starved, buried alive, or who suffered other forms of unnatural death at the hands of the accused Nazis. And their associates, may their names be wiped out in Auschwitz, Treblinka, Majdanek, Mauthausen, and in other death camps in Europe.
Halloween. Hey, Baba.
What are you?
Baba,
Yes.
Good. Having a fourth generation is really something. It looks like Adam, but it's Zeta. Bubba's just trying to focus on it. It was two survivors in the family, my father and my mother, and they openly talked about it. And especially my dad, he needed to talk about it all the time. And so there was not much hidden from a very young age. And he proceeded to talk to thousands of school children, junior high, high school. And so I would have to say my exposure was very young.
It doesn't bring me good memories, and I'll start crying, and I don't want to spoil everything. I don't let them forget, and I don't let myself forget.
It almost felt awkward. It almost felt like I was different, you know, that I had parents who came from that background. I didn't know too many other people who did. Now it's nothing but pride and a desire to tell a story.
It's almost like an energy, like you want to share about it. You're dying to share about it. It's not a burden. It's something that you know, if you don't pass on, that people are not going to know.
Growing up in Talmud Torah, kind of learning more about it into junior high, and then getting to go on the march and actually seeing it firsthand in grade 12 was very heavy feeling. It's very important that we carry on the story.
Frankly, it's integrated like into my day-to-day life, like an imprint on my brain that like the opportunity to educate people or talk about it literally can come at a moment's notice. And these days, you know, whether that's retweeting stuff on social media or dispelling ignorant commentary from modern day maybe youth due to lack of knowledge, etc. So I don't really need to so to speak wait for like formal opportunities to share my experiences, which are imprinted on me from a very young age. Like as young as my memory goes back, I can remember hearing about it. It's part of our family legacy.
My dad was always somebody who said that you can't really learn the Holocaust from a book. His teaching of the Holocaust came from his heart. None of us will ever come close to being able to tell his story from the heart. But the good thing is that he's left us with a lot of visuals, pictures, videos, etc., that we are going to incorporate into formal presentations that I think will capture the attention of audiences who need more than just someone to come up there and give them statistics.
I think for Ron, because his grandfather was always so brave in talking and sharing his story, that it really brought to light, especially when you were 14 or 15 years old and you're talking to 14 and 15-year-old students. I think it gave Ron a big sense of pride that he was brave enough to be so open about it all the time. And there are a lot of survivors who they find it too painful to share. And so we as a family will certainly be sharing his story with our daughter because it's quite a remarkable one. We hope that, you know, we make him proud.
Mira, you want to say something?
Hello. Hi.
Nice to have you on this program. And I hope someday you'll be able to remember all of this from your parents and from your grandparents and from everybody. And in the meantime, be a good girl and grow nice like you did till now.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
And who gave up their lives in order to sanctify God's name, because we are at one with their memory, and we pray for the elevation of their souls. Their resting place should be the Garden of Eden. Therefore shall the Master of Mercy care for them, under the protection of his wings for all time, and bind their souls in the bond of everlasting life. O earth, do not conceal their blood, and let there not be a resting place for their cry. In their marriage shall the remnant of Israel return to its rightful place. And as for the Holy One, their righteousness shall be in front of the Lord as an everlasting memory. They will come in peace and will rest in peace. They will meet their rightful destiny at the end of days. And let us say, Amen.
El malei rachamim, shochen mamromim. Hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina. B'malot kedoshim etorim, kezohar akia mazhirim. Lenishmot kol achinu v'achiotenu b'nei Yisrael shenitbechu b'shoah. Anashim, nashim, v'atav, shenechneku, v'shenisrefu, v'shenehergu, shemasru et nafsham al kiddush Hashem. Began Eden tehei menuchatam. Anabal harachamim, הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן.
We honor the sacred memory of those who opened the gates of freedom, those brave men and women of the liberating forces, people who bravely fought against hatred and oppression. The Allied forces changed world events. Their bravery and sacrifices must always be remembered.
Well, look at my beautiful family. You all look wonderful. I love it. I wish I could have this picture.
Do you have any memories of teaching us about what you went through in the Holocaust?
You know what? Somehow I couldn't do it to my kids. So I've never told them. But I went through a lot because I was very young when they took me, 14 years old. I went to a ghetto first and Machi Soko. And then I went to Auschwitz. And Auschwitz, we were liberated by the Americans. The soldiers came and we got all excited. So what can I tell you? And I'm here with my daughters. I've got the best daughters now, and I have wonderful granddaughters and great grandsons. So it makes me happy. Because I'm 92 years old now. Life is very good to me right now.
We grew up without beyond our immediate family and without grandparents. And for my mom to raise 4 children without someone to go to help her, except friends that she had accumulated over time. So it puts a different picture on things. And she never talked about it. And now as a mother of 2 daughters, I think when the next generation came, she felt now I should share.
I came from a wonderful home and I had 4 brothers and none of them I've got left. So I was the only girl, the youngest. And what can I tell you? I didn't have any other relatives and I still don't have my own relatives.
In Winnipeg was when they did the, she was interviewed for the Shoah for the Spielberg tapes. And that's kind of the first time she began to talk a little bit.
Yes.
As small children, we knew a little bit about her story, but not from her. We knew it wasn't something we should ask about until she was ready to share. And so when she did, we felt very grateful and fortunate that we were able to hear from her.
4 or 5 years ago, it was the first time that we really heard the story from Grandma. And like Eliza was saying, how Grandma remembered exactly the white Angora sweater at the butcher shop and, all these very specific details of her beauty and how her story just really took her from place to place in the most fortunate of ways. And it was so exciting as an adult to finally hear the story straight from my grandmother's mouth. So just wanted to share that because it was a long time that I've been waiting to hear it directly from you, Grandma. Thank you.
I was lucky enough before I went on March to the Living for Grandma to sit me down and tell me her story. And there's little details that I remember really vividly of hearing from her and then being in Auschwitz and connecting those dots and it being really emotional.
That storytelling is like the biggest gift, and I think and definitely our responsibility and honor to pass on. Definitely something I love sharing with my son, a new generation of boys after all these women. And he is 2.5 and loves talking to Bubby.
Sometimes I feel so lucky that I have these wonderful children. And this is the honest truth. And they are. I love you all. Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Let us say Kaddish, not only for the dead, but also for the living who have forgotten the dead. And let the prayer be more than prayer, more than lament. Let it be outcry, protest, and defiance. And above all, let it be an act of remembrance, for that is what the victims wanted. To be remembered, at least to be remembered. For just as the killer was determined to erase Jewish memory, so were the dying heroes and fighting martyrs bent on maintaining it alive. They are now being defamed or forgotten, which is like killing them a second time. Let us say Kaddish together and not allow others to betray them posthumously.
Yeah. Okay, is that right? All right.
Yiskadal v'yiskadash mei rabo v'alma
divrach
bro
yirtei v'amlich machutei v'chayachonu v'yomechonu v'chay d'chol beit Yisrael
bagala izman korim v'yimru omein
Yehesh mei rabba mevarach le'olam le'almei almaya
Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispoar v'yisraman v'yisnasei v'yisadar v'yisalei v'yisalal shmei kodesha b'richu le'oila le'ela mikol abruchata v'yishirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiram v'yalma v'yimru omein
Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael
v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imraman. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
And in the words of Elie Wiesel, never shall I forget that night, the first night in the camp, which has turned my life into one long night, 7 times cursed and 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the little faces of the children whose bodies I saw turned into wreaths of smoke beneath a silent blue sky. Never shall I forget those flames which consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget that nocturnal silence which deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams into dust. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am condemned to live, as long as God Himself. Never.
Oh, sweet. Great, Baba. Look, say hi,
Look,
Baba.
there's Arissa.
Look, say hi, Baba.
That's
That's all you get. Sorry, guys.
Can you take a picture of this?
Hey,
Hey.
oh, nice to see you all. I love you all. You all beautiful kids. All my children. You all mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are.
You all mine. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great grandchildren, and I'm still here. It was really horrible for me to lose the whole family and to be all left alone and come to the house. Where are you all? I start crying. Where are you all? Nobody came back. We were 7 of us. I'm the only one left from the whole family.
Well, you have us.
I have you. Yeah.
I know those
Look at
people.
But
You're not alone.
But my family was gone.
Yeah.
My family was gone. It's a horrible thing what I went through. And here I have such a beautiful family, good family. You all, my family.
Oh, love you, Mom. It's okay. I remember being really, really young when she used to tell me her stories, because I wrote about them in school a lot. I know her stories. I know some of them better than she does now. They're just ingrained in me. I wanted my kids to know from an early age too, so I actually told them about her stories. And also Baba, or my mom, when we'd take a road trip, like to Kelowna or somewhere far, like a road trip, she would talk about her stories for hours. She would tell other people about her, what she went through. If anybody who wanted to know, she would tell them about it. And I think it's important to pass it on from generation to generation, so that nobody ever forgets and that this never ever happens again. What she went through, I saw it. I went to Auschwitz this past year, and I saw where she was. And I mean, I don't know how she survived, but she was brave enough to survive, thank God.
Yeah, I survived.
And
I'm
here
still
we
here.
all are. So I'm very happy you were brave, Mom.
I'm still here. I'm still here to tell the story.
There was a historian in New York that interviewed her a number of years ago, and that was enlightening as well, because there were a few things there that I didn't know. And the interview is being passed on to my children as well.
I don't think I knew most of her story until I got that interview from my dad, because Baba didn't really, I don't know, when we went to visit, we didn't really talk about the Holocaust. We just enjoyed our time together. So to know her specific details, I didn't really know it until I actually listened to that interview and got to know in quite detail about what had happened to her. And then we learned about the Holocaust in general through school and going to Israel and teaching my kids that kind of stuff in general.
I think it just organically happens, and then I keep dropping, like this is just how it's been going with my son, is I keep just dropping information, little bits, and give him more as he gets older and as he can understand it.
I do hope to send my kids to Jewish school, and maybe they'd start learning about it a little bit earlier, and then I'd have to explain it to them as they when they're younger as well. So
I think that's where it comes up, is in school. Hunter, how old are you now?
I'm about to turn 16. It's 15 right now.
Because Baba was 19 when she went to Auschwitz. I think she was 19.
Yeah.
So not too much older than you are.
Not at all.
Not too much, yeah.
If I had to put my finger on what I would say would be how I would pass it down, would be that when you don't have the potency of the experience and of seeing Baba who's gone through all this and can tell you, I'd say you have to really focus on that idea of not forgetting, and not only not forgetting, but what you're not forgetting. Because when you look at Holocaust history, it's not just the Nazis did this horrible thing that's absolutely reprehensible. It's that as people and as humans, we're able to do such things on both the bad end of the spectrum and have such courage, like Baba showed when she went through this time and then prospered afterwards. At that point, it's less of a, this is what we just went through type of thing. And it's more of, look at this part of our history that shows who we are and who we could be and who we have to be to then become better people in the world.
Well said.
Wow, that was rabbinical.
Thank God for all of you. Thank God for all of you. I'm still here. I'm still here to see you all.
Oh yeah.
Thank God for that. I'm old already. But,
No, you're young. You're only 97. You're young.
Yeah, 97, you hear?
We stand in memory of the heroic fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto, who in their darkest hour broke the chains of slavery and freed themselves to fight the Nazi savages, and when they died, did so with dignity. We hold hope for future generations, for the children to come, for the dreams to be realized, for what we as humanity have yet to achieve, but continue to strive for, peace.
Du Geist im besten Weg, Himmeln bleine, farsten blaue Tag, kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abbeugt und unser Schott mir sehnen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abbeugt und unser Schott mir sehnen da. Von grünen Palmenland bis weißen Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weg. Und wo gefallen sie, so schwitzt von unser Blut. Schwurzen weg dort unser Kur, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen sie, so spritzt von unser Blut. Schwurzen weg dort unser Kur, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgens in Bagilden uns dem Heim. Und der Nächten weh wie Schwarden mit dem Heim. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie a Parol so gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie a Parol so gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Das Lied geschrieben ihm ist Blut und nicht mit Blei. Sie ist nicht kein Lied auf ohne Vögel läuft frei. Das hat Vogt zwischen Feldern nicht gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. Das hat Vogt zwischen Feldern nicht gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. Versag nicht keinmal, als du Geist im besten Weg. Himmeln bleine, farsten blaue Tag. Kommet nicht noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird erbeugt und unser Schott mir sehnen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. das Wetter beugt an unser Schott, wir sehnen da.
We will always remember. We will not let our kids forget.